After 14 years of coaching, the one thing I wish I understood sooner was the 10-80-10 principle. And on today's episode, I'm going to break down for you exactly what the 10-80-10 principle is and how it's going to completely shift the way that you think about building skills as a coach and as an entrepreneur. And that's coming up next right here on Coach Smarter. Welcome to Coach Smarter, the show for online coaches who understand that true success doesn't come from doing more, it comes from doing what matters most and aligning your business with your life. I'm your host, Stephen Box, and I want to show you how to grow a profitable, sustainable coaching business without sacrificing your health, relationships, or personal time. So if you're ready to grow your online coaching business without getting burned out, let me show you how to coach smarter, not harder. Welcome to another episode of Coach Smarter, brought to you by Unshakable Habits. I am your host, Stephen Box, and today we're talking about skill building as a coach, and specifically the 10-80-10 principle and how it applies to skill building. 14 years ago, when I first started coaching, I was coming out of retail management. Now, in that arena, I was highly successful. Sales numbers were always great. Add-on percentages were really high. I was getting people promoted into their own stores. My paperwork was always immaculate. My store always looked the way that it was supposed to look. In other words, I was absolutely killing it as a retail store manager. And I assumed that those skills that I had would automatically translate over into my business. And maybe you can relate to that, where you felt like some of the things that you were doing in a previous position would just automatically translate over. What I didn't understand was that running a business is really hard. There's a lot to it that was going on behind the scenes of the company that I worked at that I never saw and didn't really fully grasp the concept of how hard they were and how many skills I was going to need to develop in order to become a successful business owner. Because now I was going from just manager and salesperson to basically wearing all the hats in my business. I'm now the marketing team. I'm the content creation team. I'm the customer service department. I'm the coach. I'm the CEO, the CFO, right? Of all these different things. And I didn't even touch like half of the roles that I probably have in my business right there. But the point being is, I tried to do everything at once, and it was highly overwhelming because there came this point where I realized, hey, I have to get all these things under my tool belt if I'm going to be successful in business, right? I can't just depend on hoping that people find me and sign up. I have to develop all of these skills. And so I went out and I started taking courses and programs and reading books and doing all these things to try to learn these different skills. And what I found was I kept getting stuck, right? I couldn't really master any of the skills. I couldn't even really gain competence in any of the skills, or some of them I might, and then others I would really struggle with. And this really set my business back for a while and made it very difficult for me to grow until I started looking more into this concept of systems. So the book that actually introduced me to this idea was The E-Myth Revisited. And there they talk a lot about systems. And I started thinking about where I was a little differently. I said, what I need is systems in place. And I started thinking about how do you create a system for skill development? What I came up with is what I call the 10-80-10 principle. The 10-80-10 principle is looking at skill building in three parts. The first 10% is what I call the competence phase. The middle 80% is the growth stage. And then the final 10% is mastery stage. So in that first 10%, this is honestly the hardest part because you are at ground zero. You don't know anything. You don't even know what you don't know. at this stage. And even if you maybe have some knowledge at this stage, you probably don't have very much application. So it's all theory. So even if you do know a little something, you don't necessarily know what to do with it. So that's really where you are at the beginning of the first stage. And the problem with this is when we don't know anything and we don't know what we need to know, it's very easy to get caught up on trying to do too much or thinking that we need to know more than we do. And the goal of the competence stage, as the name suggests, is to become competent. That's it. It's not to become a master. Mastery is the last 10%. It's not to know everything, because the 80% growth stage is where we're going to do most of our learning. The first stage is all about becoming competent. And competent just means that you are one level, at least one level above the person that you're coaching. So let's say that you are a health coach and you're trying to help someone lose weight. You either need to have personally lost some weight and know what it takes, or you need to have done some certifications, some studies that would actually show you how to help people lose weight. Now, this may be your first client, so maybe you haven't helped anyone actually lose weight yet, but you do know what it takes. Now, you may not be great at it yet. You might make some mistakes. Matter of fact, in this phase, you are going to make mistakes. Let's just be blunt about it. But you can learn from those mistakes. And I think, honestly, that's what makes this phase so hard for people, right? It's the awkwardness of not really knowing what you're doing yet, but it's also that fear of making a mistake, ruining your reputation, having things go wrong that really puts a struggle on this phase for a lot of people. And you cannot be afraid to make mistakes here, because when you are learning anything new, of course you're going to make mistakes, right? This is all new to you. How can we possibly expect to get everything right the first time? We can't. That would be ridiculous. The first thing I'm going to say here is, when you are in this 10% phase, your growth is going to be really fast if you're focused. It doesn't mean that you're going to know everything. It doesn't mean you're going to have things perfected. It doesn't mean that you're going to be the greatest coach in the world at the end of phase one. What it means is that you will be good enough to help someone one level below you get to where you are now. Right? That's it. That's all phase one needs to be. And when you look at it from that perspective, it honestly takes so much pressure off. Because now you don't feel like you have to know everything. You don't feel like you have to be really good at everything. But you just need to be good enough to be better than someone one level below you. And you need to be able to help them come up that one level. The second phase is the growth phase. This is really the fun stage in my mind, right? This is where you get to experiment with things. You get to try things out. You get to find out what you like, what you don't like, what works for you, what doesn't work for you. This phase might contain continued education. It might be somewhere where you're reading books or listening to podcasts, and you're just learning information and you're trying things out and you're seeing what works for you. And you're getting your systems in place. You're getting everything set up to work for you. And yes, this phase also does have failures, but the failures at this stage are not as dramatic as they are in that first stage, because in the first stage, you literally are going to do things that are completely wrong and you're going to mess up. And you're going to go back and go, okay, that didn't work. Let me go back to the drawing board and start over. In this phase, you at least have a foundation of what works, right? You build that foundation in phase one. So now you at least have a foundation of what works and you're experimenting off of that. So you're still going to fail. You're still going to make mistakes. You're still going to make changes to things. You're still going to have that growth. But the changes are going to be smaller. Not necessarily smaller, but the mistakes are going to be smaller, is what I meant to say. And so they're not going to have as big of an impact on you. And so this is the phase where you really get the opportunity to try new things with less fear and see really what works for you. And once you got your systems in place, once you've dialed things in and you have things where you want, now you can start to go deep on things. Now we can really start to get into mastery of a particular subject. So just to give you a quick example here, let's say that you are talking about coaching skills. So we're talking actual sitting down, having a coaching call with a client skills. In the beginning, maybe you follow a template that someone is giving you, or you just ask the questions that kind of make sense. So what problems do you have? What if you tried? And then you make some suggestions on what they can do. Maybe that's where you are in the beginning, just somewhere like that. And by the end of phase 1, you've at least started to figure out which questions you want to ask going forward, which ones didn't really work for you. You start to understand the problems that you're going to run into in your business and how you can go about solving them. As you get into phase 2, now you can start to test things out, right? You can test different scheduling systems. You can test, whether you want to do video calls or phone calls or in-person calls. You can play around with different coaching styles and really see what works for you and what fits for you personally and what works best for your clients as well, right? Because maybe your clients respond best to a certain coaching style. And so that's really your growth phase. But then once you get past that, like now your systems are in place, you've got everything situated. Now you start to learn advanced techniques, right? So now it's, okay, let me really dive in. So let's say something like motivational interviewing. Maybe that's something you start to utilize and use within the growth phase. But in the mastery stage, you can really start to dive into those techniques, because in the growth phase, maybe you just use 2 or 3 motivational interviewing techniques. But in the mastery stage, you've learned to use 7 or 8 of them. It's really just a progression at that point, right? But it's important to understand, once you get to the mastery stage, growth is super slow. Like you hear people talk about just get 1% better. 1% in the mastery stage is a huge leap, because your growth is really going to be like 0.0001%. Think about a world-class athlete. Think about a sprinter. Use Usain Bolt here as an example. How much effort and training would it actually take for Usain Bolt to take even just milliseconds off of his time? He's already so fast. The effort and the time it would take for him to even just shave a few milliseconds off would be phenomenal amount of effort and work. And that's really where you would be when you get to the mastery stage. And I'm going to tell you, most people probably never even get to the mastery stage, and that's completely fine, because you can really just stay in that 80% growth phase and get everywhere you want to be. The 10% is reserved for those who want to be the best of the best. If you want to go to the next level, if you want to be known as the go-to person in something, that mastery stage is where you get there. If you're content with just, hey, I just want to be good at this and I just want to have clients and I just want to help them and I'm not worried about being the best of the best, I just want to be good enough to help the people I help, then you don't need to worry about that last 10%. It's okay if you don't get there. It's okay if you just stay in the 80% growth phase. So that is the 10-80-10 principle. And like I said, it's just a complete shift, because so often we're told all the things we need to do when we start coaching, and especially if you're starting a business in conjunction with your coaching. You're told, oh, you got to market, you got to do social media, you got to coach people, you got to get sales, you have to understand your market, you have to create designs for social media, you have to do all these things. And it can be overwhelming, especially if you have never done any of it. So I just want to invite you today to explore this 10-80-10 principle. Understanding that first 10% is just about getting competence. It's about getting one level above the person that you're going to be helping and understanding how you can help that person get to the level that you're at. And by the way, while you're getting them to that level, you're growing yourself, so you're getting to the next level, right? So you're always going to stay one step above them. That's what the growth phase is there for, is to help you always stay one step ahead. But it also helps you in terms of setting up your business and growing in those skills. And then the master stage, like I said, that's for if you want to become the best of the best. So that is the 10-80-10 principle. Hope you guys found that helpful today. If you ever have any questions about coaching, if you want to talk about the 10-80-10 principle or anything else, always feel free to reach out to me over on Instagram at Unshakable Habits. That's where you can follow me at. And I'm happy to help you out, answer some questions, and point you in the right direction to help you learn to coach smarter. Also, want to remind everyone, coming up in January, we are going to be relaunching the virtual book club. So there was a link down in the show notes if you want to join that. It is completely free. We'll be meeting once a week to discuss a book that is going to help you with your business and coaching skills. And finally, make sure that you come back and join us on our next episode, because I'm actually going to go from just telling you about this 10-80-10 principle to laying out a couple of skill trees that you can actually utilize in your coaching and your business that will help you gain clarity on what your next step should actually look like, so you do not want to miss that. But until then, this is Steven Box reminding you, as always, that today is a great day to break free from the chaos and start living life on your terms.